Nu så ska ni få se en intervju med en internationellt prisbelönt författare. Hon har fått alla tänkbara priser. Hennes skildringar är väldigt spännande. Den här boken som heter Sankmark, den handlar om två bröder. Den yngre brodern är den äventyrliga, karismatiska som föräldrarna älskar. Den äldre brodern är den inåtvända, ordentliga. Och så dör den ena brodern. Det blir ett stort hål efter honom. Vad händer då? Jag träffade författaren Jhumpa Lahiri och så här berättar hon om sin roman. Welcome to Sweden and to my show.
Thank you.
I've had a great pleasure reading your book.
Thank you.
But it's a really, it puts a lot of questions inside the reader's head, I think. Because it's not easy. It's like people are, I think, in very many dimensions. But it starts with two brothers that are very close in age, 15 months in between them.
Yes.
Could you describe them?
Well, they grow up in post-independence Calcutta, in a very ordinary part of the city. And they are very close, not only in age, but companions to one another.
But they're quite different.
But they are also quite different. One is, the older one is a bit, is more withdrawn and hesitant as a person and contemplative, and the younger brother is, I would say, the rebel and always questioning things. And so their dynamic is very intense, and it's in a way a reversal because the younger brother is the one who seems to be leading the older one.
Which is quite difficult for the older one, I think, because he's very mixed. He has mixed feelings towards his own feelings against his brother. He wants to be that brave, and then at the same time, he's not that kind of person at all.
That's
so
right.
it goes on inside of him, this kind of struggle.
Yes, and he both admires his younger brother, but also, I think, envies him a little bit.
There are always parents too, and how they are in their relationship towards their children. Is it so? Because I got the impression that the parents love the younger one more.
Well, the younger one has charisma, so I think it's easy to, to be charmed by a child who's very charismatic, whereas a quieter child is more of a mystery, and it's harder to know what's back there.
But the years goes on, and the older one, he moves to the U.S.
Yes.
And he's quite successful in his academic studies. And the other one, he's a rebel still, because he gets involved in politics. And that kind of divide them from each other.
Yes. I mean, they have a moment of separation, both geographically, I would say, and also in terms of their attitude toward the world and what their role in the world should be. So the younger one dedicates himself to a radical political movement that is taking over his city in the late 1960s and early 70s. But I think the older one, in leaving his country, also rebels in a sense against his identity, his family, what is expected of him. So I think both of them are rebelling in different ways, if that makes sense.
But the older one, it doesn't show as much because he's not physically involved, like the younger one.
Yes.
And this also costs his life.
For the younger one.
For the younger one.
Yes.
And then you can see how what happens becomes like a big hole when a person with that charisma disappears or dies. And things changed a lot in the family.
Yes, and the novel is really about the consequences of that hole, as you say. What is the effect of that? absence, which becomes a presence in a way, an ongoing presence in terms of how the lives of the family are affected permanently.
And it shows different sides, new sides of each person in this family.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yes, and everybody changes to a certain degree, and everyone reacts, and everyone is, I mean, the family is shattered, and the bonds between the surviving members are also radically changed.
Why did you choose this story, these two brothers, to tell this story? Because it's like a metaphor too.
Well, the story was inspired by two brothers who lived in the neighborhood where my father was raised in Calcutta, called Taliganj, which I refer to in the book. And during the Naxalite years in Calcutta, which were the early 1970s, one evening these two brothers were arrested and killed by the paramilitary during a raid in the neighborhood. So I was aware of this story when I was an adolescent, and at a certain point became increasingly curious about what had happened to these boys, these young university students, and what the movement was about, and it opened up a series of questions that I had. So the characters were inspired by knowing about these two brothers, though I never knew them personally, and I have no connection to the family or anything. I just heard about them. So I started out with this idea, but when I began to work with them as characters, I thought it would be more interesting in terms of the story I was interested in telling, to have only one brother be politically involved and the other one the survivor, and to set up this
reflection of the story, sort of.
Well, I think to have both of them die would be a different kind of story, but to have one brother survive creates another kind of story. So I was interested in an alternate version, I suppose.
And I'm thinking of your own background also, to move from place to place, and as you have described, never feel really at home, because that's both brave to move, and it's a positive side of moving around, because you have to create something new all the time. And on the other hand, it's kind of a sad story in that too, to never feel that this is my country, this is my place to be.
It's both. I mean, it's both. You feel the lack of something, but it can also be quite liberating. I mean, it is, you live with it. You learn to live with the sense of not feeling that there is any one country to call your own. And I think it was something that plagued me more when I was young. I felt that it was not natural to not feel completely connected and identified with any one place. The way my mother and father felt even though they lived in the United States, where I was raised, they felt deeply connected with and identified with India. But I didn't have that feeling. I didn't share that feeling about India, nor was I able to feel that about the United States. So I was left with the lack of that feeling. Or the liberation? And now I think I reap the benefit, right? Now I'm an adult and I feel, I moved to Rome about 2 years ago, and I realize with this move, the world is, an enormous place of potentially, ongoing discovery. And that is a very powerful thing to be aware of, and to know that I can move from place to place and feel... And still have your family and still be part of that? Yes. I mean, I think for me, the notion of a homeland has been reduced to some portable elements, and I think the first thing that was important for me to discover as a person was my writing. And once I once I became a writer, once I was able to call myself a writer, I felt that my work was who I was, and that was what I was, you know, that was, what is the word I'm looking for? I was, you know, not a patriot of any country, but I was, you know, sort of dedicated to my work in the way that one can feel dedicated to one's country and identified with one's country. So that was the first thing. And then, of course, making my own family, becoming a mother, having my children, has created a sort of, you create your own little universe once you make a family. So I think having my work and having my family, you know, if I have my desk and I have my children and my husband, it feels like that is my place, and those are that is what roots me.
And then you can take that.
And then you can take it
and move it.
And you can move it around if you need to.
It's interesting. On the other hand, it's also, the book is also interesting about what happens when you change in that universe people's roles, what will happen, because then you create something new in your own personality, probably, as you can see in the older brother.
Yes. And I think change can be very threatening, but it can also be essential. You know, I don't think there's any easy way to explain the effects of these things. But
it's a fantastic story, and I don't think we should say anything more how it goes, because the reader have to discover what will happen.
Thank you so much.
Because things are really happening in this new family situation. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Ja, det var alltså en intervju som jag gjorde igår för att den skulle kunna bli översatt. Men programmet är inte slut. Man kan väl säga att jag har sparat det bästa till sist. Det här är en fantastisk bok och en fantastisk författare som ni strax ska få möta. Torgny Lindgren med sin nya roman Klingsor, som jag har haft stor glädje av att läsa. Lyssna på den här intervjun alldeles strax.